My name is Emile van Staak. I'm chef owner of restaurant Nieuwe Winkel. The restaurant started out 11 years ago, and since day one I was aware of the great challenges we face as humanity and that they revolve around our plate. So we do not need to look any further than our dinner plates to make a difference. And at day one I did not have all the knowledge, I still don't have it. But over time we became more experienced in doing that. Also because of the collaboration we have with Wouter van Eck. And we learned how to work around animal protein, turning our restaurant recently into a fully plant-based restaurant. And this is actually the single biggest thing you can do to save planet Earth. So 11 years ago it was already there. I was already motivated, knowing that so much revolves around our dinner plates. But over time we just learned how to work around it, and we learned how we could be effective. So our number one objective is less animals, more plants. And then secondary to that, how do these plants grow? Is it an annual cropping system with a lot of inputs, or can we grow them in a different way, more in line with how nature works? And that is something I've learned from the collaboration with Wouter van Eck. And if you base an agricultural system on that principle, you get a food forest. It was hugely inspiring. So shifting away from animals to plants, and secondary to that, how do the plants grow? Of course, we would love to work with perennial plants more than annual crops.
My name is Wouter van Eck. We are here surrounded by Food Forest Ketelbroek, created back in 2009 on a former bare field. So this food forest system has been developing well during the last years. So now we are surrounded by an edible ecosystem. A food forest is a polyculture, so it's different species. It's mimicking a natural forest. So when it grows, it will develop a layering of vegetation. It doesn't need any external input. So no fossil fuels being needed, no pesticides being needed. Nature is taking care for the system. So it's a type of agriculture, actually a type of agroforestry, offering us growing food via perennial plants. So it's not an annual system where you have to start each year over again, and you have to till the soil, and you have to seed, and you have to fertilize. And badly enough, often pesticides are sprayed in monoculture industrial cropping systems. But in the food forest, nature is taking care, it's growing abundance, and we have food from the forest. Our motivation to start with the food forest was partly because we dislike modern agriculture. It's creating empty landscapes. In the Netherlands, a lot of biodiversity has decreased, so insects are gone by about 80%. Birds are gone about 60%. Mammals are gone, many species became very, very rare. And industrial agriculture, so the monoculture cropping systems and the cattle keeping, is also contributing to climate crisis quite severe. It's also suffering from climate crisis, so it's no way future proof. It cannot go on this way, so we were searching for alternatives. And by building a food producing system the way a natural forest works, we don't need any external input anymore. And we are not emitting greenhouse gases, we are sequestering carbon. At least the trees and soil life together are doing the great trick for us. This place was an empty place. This was a bare field. There was no biodiversity left here. And now it's many red-listed species, from nocturnal butterflies, the fireflies at the summer evening, the badgers, the weasel, all have a place to live here and contribute to the system of the food forest. Some years ago, a chef called me, Emile van der Staak, from nearby Nijmegen town, and he wanted to visit. And the food forest still was a bit at a young stage. So there was not that much to harvest and not that much to be seen. Actually, when you start a food forest from a bare field, the first years it will look like a lot of weeds and some minor twigs, and that's it. But it Since it's a perennial system, it grows during the years, but the harvests are following later on. And so I was a bit reluctant to meet this chef from nearby Nijmegen, but he insisted somehow, and then I said, okay, you can come.
8 years ago I showed up here for the first time, and I was not really looking forward to the meeting with Wouter. I was a bit annoyed, the weather was not so good, it was raining, it was November. The food forest as you see it now is grown in volume, but at that day it was like 1 meter high maybe, the highest tree. So that was the starting point, and I hear later that Wouter had exactly the same feeling, like I don't want to have a chef in my field because this is not a proper forest yet. So I had that feeling until Wouter pronounced the simple sentence that annual cropping starts with an empty field. You need a lot of input during the year, fertilizer, you need some pesticides and big machines, and at the end of the year you have an empty field again. This is not how nature works. And when he said that sentence, something shifted in my head and I was like, this makes so much sense. I was even annoyed that I couldn't come up with this idea myself. And I wanted to learn more, and every week I come back here on Mondays by bike to learn more about how this system works. And over time we created botanical gastronomy to frame it. So the knowledge of the botanist, Wouter van Eck, and then a chef that finds applications, making super delicious food. And that is what motivates me up till now. Still motivated to finding new applications for some of the crazy plants that grow around me.
Botanical gastronomy is the combination of the knowledge about plants, how much more edible plants there are and what parts to use when, and a talented chef which can produce delicious food and great tastes out of those plants. So we need both skills from both sides. So our cooperation is also a bit like an ecosystem. I'm a food forest farmer. I know a lot about all those edible species. I'm a plant nerd, but he is a culinary genius. Emile can, with his gastronomical skills, make delicious food.
There are a couple of good examples of the products that a perennial system like a food forest gives you. There are over 400 different species growing here, but there are a couple of that are worth mentioning, like Chinese mahogany, for example, is a tree with beautiful feathered leaves, common vegetable in China. You eat the young shoots during the whole season. You actually can harvest the young shoots, but and they have the taste like roasted onion. So we made a little joke and called it the French onion soup. So if you now order this tree online in the Netherlands, you can order it as a French onion soup. So it's getting out of hand. But this is actually the perfect ambassador for the system we have here. The easy to apply vegetable. It's almost an insult for a chef. You can put a fresh leaf of Chinese mahogany on a plate and it's already a proper dish. And what's good to know, we were nutting this tree at the end of the season, so it was easier to harvest, because if you let it grow, of course, it becomes very dangerous. And when we were doing that, there was an enormous aroma around us. The smell was so intense that it came to my head like, what would happen if we used the wood that we were actually nutting, if we used that wood like we would use beef bones and make a broth out of it. So that came to mind, and then we started working on that idea in the kitchen. It took us around 6 months and a lot of frustration, because at the beginning it was bitter and it was not very nice to eat. But over time we find the right balance between time and temperature, and we were able to make an infusion, a broth, out of the wood of the Chinese mahogany, resembling the flavor of chicken broth. So we haven't told the Chinese yet, but we should actually, because not only the leaves are super tasty, but also the wood can be used to make this infusion, for example. And after that we evolved, and now we are able to make paper out of the wood of the Chinese mahogany, and this paper is used to make a spring roll. So this is what gastronomy is all about. It's the science of finding ways to make super delicious food. We know that the most effective way to reduce the impact on the planet is to eat a more plant-based diet, to shift away from animal protein and eat more plants. So you may think this will never happen. You might be right. Yet consumer demand is increasing. More and more people are willing to change their behavior if they are good alternatives. So what I wish for the future is that the great culinary brains in the world make an effort in finding more applications for the high quality range of what the plant kingdom offers us. And I'll predict they will come with dishes we cannot dream of today.
We can recover, literally, our planet with abundance, with a system that's not polluting, not contributing to greenhouse problems, but helping to solve them. And this is a good idea for the future.